Hello, everybody.
Welcome to our show. This is a Life on Purpose Live, a show grounded in the Japanese philosophy of Ikigai, where we give you educational content in the form of interviews. Today is a fantastic day for us. We have an amazing guest here. If it's your first time joining the show, I'm Peter. I'm a United States Marine. I served for 20 years in the United States Marine Corps. And, I did a couple of other things as well. I'm an entrepreneur and author, speaker, mentor, and coach. And I'm here really with, the amazing Lena Vasquez, but everyone should know who you
Uh,
are.
Welcome, everybody. Yes, I'm Lena V, a global multilingual educator, and I'm so excited to be here. Peter and I have this show, A Life on Purpose, live as part of our bigger organization and mission, A Life on Purpose, which, as the name suggests, is really about helping individuals reach their fullest potential, live a life on purpose in every single aspect of your life. And today we have an individual, first of all, as well as a topic that this individual is going to explore with us together that is very relevant to the times right now, which is
Wow.
all about connection, global connection, and individual connection. And if you've ever asked yourself the question, how can I connect to my true self? How can I find my passion? How can I find my purpose? And what does all of that mean, not only for me, but for my family, for my work, for my business, and for the world? So if you've ever asked these questions, we're going to have some answers, which I'm excited about. And so, to introduce our wonderful guest today, Kim du Plessis is a facilitator and an educator and an executive coach as well, who works together not only with individuals but with global leaders to essentially tap into passion and purpose on multiple levels. And she uses systemic family constellations also as one means to help release entanglements that may be causing blockages in your life, as well as exploring the Enneagram, which is something I'm excited to tap into as well,
Right.
and a lot of other areas. So, Kim, we're going to bring you up. Welcome.
Hi. Greetings from beautiful Southern Africa.
Oh,
Wow.
can we just actually, can you tell us exactly where you are? Which country are you joining us from?
So I'm in a tiny little Southern African nation called Eswatini. It was traditionally known as Swaziland and was renamed, sure, a few years ago to
Mhm.
Eswatini, which means land of the Swazis. And yeah, it's a monarchy, still governed by a monarchical system, and the Swazi nation still is under the leadership of their king.
Right.
If you looked at Africa and you found South Africa,
Mhm.
and there's two circles, one would be Lesotho, which is well known probably because of Prince Harry, and then the other circle, which borders Mozambique, is Eswatini.
When we had first met Kim, and I was telling Lena about our conversation, I was like really excited about speaking with you. And I told her about the country Eswatini. Like she didn't actually believe me that this place existed.
Which is kind of embarrassing because I'm a big lover of geography and I pretty much know every capital of every country. And then Peter said, "Yeah, Eswatini." I said, "That's not a country." So my apologies.
Which is awesome. Can you talk to us just a little bit about yourself? Like, how did you get to your location where you are right now? Just a little bit of your personal narrative and how
Yeah,
you got into coaching, how you got into the type of work that you do. I think that would be interesting.
awesome. Thank you. I grew up in South Africa in KwaZulu-Natal. So I'm a Zulu girl, grew up in Zululand. And then I was married young, so I was 21 when I got married, and we moved to Swaziland. So we spent 4 years here, and then we went overseas. So we spent 14 years in the United Kingdom,
Mm.
based in London and Bristol, and we had two amazing children. My daughter, who's now 19, Savannah, and she's a brilliant artist, and then my son Ryder, who's 17. But when they were kind of 5 or 6, somebody asked me if you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live? And I said, there's this little African nation that has stolen my heart. And with all my heart, I'd love to go back. And they just said, well, do it. So in 2010, we ended up back in Africa and in Eswatini, which was then Swaziland. And I was homeschooling my children at the time. So what I used to do to earn money was I was a computer trainer, so in all the Microsoft products, and I'd worked in London and Bristol as a computer trainer. And then I had started homeschooling my children. I was just passionate about that and passionate about deinstitutionalizing their education and making sure that throughout their life they would love learning. That, you know, my association with school was I hated exams and I hated the stress of exams. And it kind of positions you against learning. You think you have to learn to pass an exam, but actually learning is a lifelong skill. And so, yeah, I just ended up having a conversation with somebody one day, and they opened me up to this concept of human potential. And I've always had a passion for people. I long to see people unlocked and living their fullest lives and the fullest expression of themselves. And yeah, so I started working in the human potential space with organizations and individuals, and it's just grown from there. And so I have my real passion is to see this beautiful continent that I live on fully living out and expressing each country within Africa, just living the vast potential that is in creativity and music and dance and song and the arts, in you know, just in business and the way of doing business, just unlocking. And yeah, I feel I'm in the right place and space, and just have the wonderful privilege of working with every conceivable sector. It just shows up. So from field workers, bus drivers, to, you know, leaders of across the I'm not quite sure how to word it all, but across the market sectors.
Right. You've been amazing connecting people. And see, I told you Kim was awesome. I kept saying that because you hadn't spoken to Lena yet. But I was just fascinated by how you've used your work to connect people in a remarkable way. This is really what I enjoy about the show that we do. We show what it means to live a purposeful life from all the different aspects, right? From all the different sectors. Everybody has a different way of doing it. And it's just remarkable what you've been able to do throughout your time. You know, just moving through different sectors, moving through leadership, helping individuals at the same time, like moving government organizations in the right direction towards, you know, humanity, creating the type of world that we want to see. So it's just fascinating. I salute you. You know, great job. Keep doing great work.
Yes, I absolutely love the fact that you look at it from so many, you know, on so many different levels. You're not going just working with global leaders or, you know, people at the top of, you know, society or in our systems, but you're really, like, it really shows through that you are passionate about helping people expand their potential and you know, anywhere they are, whoever they are. And I guess I'd love to ask you a question on that. You know, you mentioned the word human potential, and I guess we all kind of know what potential is. You know, we hear these comments of like, you got to tap into your potential. You're not living up to your full potential. But what does that actually mean? You know, to live out your potential, I guess, or to tap into your potential as a human being. And what are some of the blocks that you have seen come up where people, or why people aren't doing that?
Yeah. So I suppose potential is what is unrealized in our lives. And I always think, you know, if anyone has had that phrase come through their system, surely there must be more than this. You know, if you've woken up in the morning with the thought, is this it? And I remember the turning point for me was when I turned 40. I woke up and I thought, oh, I've missed my opportunity. I'm now in the wrong part of my life, and just that shock that I haven't. Surely this can't be it, Surely. So there's that sense of there must be more, and I think so many people wake up and live a, a routinized life, and they end up in this 9 to 5, and then yet there's a part of their soul that is yearning and saying, "There's more, there's more." And just as you were asking that question, I love visuals and I love speaking in visuals, and I thought potential is the ocean, and it's that there's always more, and so you never reach your potential. There's no such thing as obtaining your full potential. There's just always more that you could explore or navigate. And so what I want to encourage people to live out is, yes, there's more. So wherever you're at in life, whatever you are currently experiencing, please know that there's more. There's more to enjoy, there's more to learn, there's more to discover, there's more to become, and that you're never going to reach it, but the invitation is to explore it. And so if you're living out your potential as an athlete, and you then reach that age where you can no longer run or catch or jump as high as you used to, then the opportunity is there's more. Do you want to become an artist? Do you want to learn a musical instrument? Do you want to write a book? Do you want to go traveling? And so to me, that's what potential is. It's not this, sometimes we narrow our world into this thin knife's edge, and we think you need to meet that one person. And if you don't meet that one person, you've missed your soulmate. You need to, for young people, you need to get that one job. You need to figure out what your career is going to be. And if you miss it and you study the wrong thing, then you've missed it. There's living this life on the knife edge of potential.
Right.
And I want to say it's an ocean. It's an ocean to explore. Do you want to do the corals? Do you want to go deep? Do you want to explore the shoreline? There's so much more. So I don't know if that answers your question or it confuses you.
Yeah.
But
I just want to dance, honestly, Kim, when you said that about there's always more and it's this never-ending thing. I honestly felt shivers through my soul, because it's such a fallacy, I think, to believe that exactly, we're born into this world and there's this one thing, and we better find it by the time we're a certain age, because oh my goodness, what happens if we don't? And I love that analogy that you use. What if you spend 10 years exploring the corals? Amazing. Now let's go to another side of the ocean and see what's there. And I think that's a really necessary message for a lot of people to hear, because sometimes it can feel like let's say, especially if you've spent a long time doing a certain thing, or exploring a certain skill and mastering it, that it can feel really scary, and just there can be a lot of resistance, to want to step into something new, or to give yourself permission more than anything to be a novice at something. And so I think those were really, really necessary words for people to hear.
Right. That was just really beautiful. Not much to expand on it, except, Kim said when she turned 40, which means she's not 25. So I was when you're living on purpose, you age well. Okay, that's the message. Make sure somebody write that down. It's very, very relative to me, what you guys were talking about when it comes to what it means to have potential, and then it ties into me when it comes to connection. I love how you brought in the ocean, right? So if our potential is the ocean, and then we're the wave coming out of the ocean, so there's always more for you to explore. And that's why it's difficult to find it sometimes, because you are it and it is you. It's connected to you. You can't really be separated from it. And this issue that I think we face a lot with navigating the spheres of our professional career, or as we age in life, is that we actually get tied to these things. We get attached to it, and we say, for example, in my personal experience, I served as a United States Marine for 20 years, so now I think this is me, and so I think my potential is tied and locked into this one specific career, not having the capacity to soften my gaze a bit and see that I am connected to the ocean of everything, and I can become anything. I can tap into that abundance, like someone wrote there in the chat, and really expand. And the reason why I want to bring it back to connection is, especially as we see what's happening in the world with Ukraine, Russia invading Ukraine, it's relevant to me here to talk about the connection, right? Which we talk a lot about connection, and what happens when we don't feel that connection to the ocean. What happens when we don't feel that connection from ourselves to another person? Can you talk about that a bit, the connection that we have to ourselves and to others, and how that impacts us as a humanity?
Yeah. And I don't want to forget the second part of Lena's question as well, as what stops us from accessing our potential. So to remind me about that.
Right.
So our connection, I was just reminded of that quote that said, when one suffers, we all suffer. And I think in our isolationistic world that we've created, we've forgotten the power of community. And there's a philosophy that is, it runs throughout every tribe in Africa that I've come across, and it's this philosophy of life called Ubuntu. And Ubuntu says that I am you and you are me, and I cannot be me. I cannot be fully me without you. And so it's just this beautiful concept of generosity, of recognizing ourselves within the other. And I might get emotional. I wonder why.
That's good.
That's okay.
Go with it.
I keep joking and I say to people, because everyone I coach ends up in tears, and I say, that's my superpower, don't worry. It's okay if you feel I'm totally comfortable. But I've also realized, I'll sometimes tap into like a global energy, and it just washes over me. And so obviously, the Ukraine and what's happening there, even though we're in this far removed space, I'm in this little country in Africa, what has the Ukraine got to do with me? And yet it has everything. It has everything, because there are mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers just like me, who are facing uncertainty, who are being overwhelmed and not sure what tomorrow will look like. And so, of course, it affects me. If one suffers, we all suffer. And I think I'm also just touched that even within Russia, people are saying, no, this is not okay.
Right.
And we are not okay. So we are Russian, and we're saying this is not okay. I feel, there's certain global leaders that have their agenda and they're pushing their worldview, but they're not the collective. And there is power in the collective, and I think there is power in connection, and there's power in an energetic connection that is moving like a tidal wave, that is moving like, that volcano that's kind of erupted in the ocean and then took off, it just, so sometimes that wave or that volcano is underground and we can't see it. But there is a collective movement, a volcano of power, and I feel it's not destructive. That is just going to rise up and suddenly present itself, and something is going to change. And so, I I love to believe that it's one mind at a time, one heart at a time, and then suddenly that little trickle is a rushing river towards the ocean, and it's heading there. And so and I see it in the young people. So I've got a 19-year-old and a 17-year-old, and I see it in their compassion. I see it in their love for people, their love for nature and the earth, and wanting to see us making better decisions. And so I'm so hopeful that, at some point, conditioned, hardened, world-weary generation is going to pass, and that we're going to usher in, and we're going to allow a new generation to rise and to say, this is the world that we declare for ourselves. This is the future that we declare. And so, time is limited for those world leaders that have done things the way things have always been done. And so I kind of feel prophetically and energetically speaking over the world, change is coming. And that volcano is already erupted.
Right.
We're gonna see the shift. So I don't know if that's just me being, but I don't know if that's just me being naive, because those protests in Russia, those people who are protesting at a cost. It's and so
I really feel like that's the thing. The illusion really is that this change, this volcano that's erupting, that there will be no consequences for it, and we can just sit back on the couch and relax, and change will come, and the world will be better for us. It won't happen this way. If you look at history, anything that needs to move forward, whether that be women's suffrage, slavery, different countries being able to actually get away from the USSR, the eradication of warfare and nuclear armaments around the world, it took sacrifice for that to happen. It took a lot of sacrifice for it to happen. And that's why actually before we came on the live, I asked you if it was okay to talk about this. Somehow I just knew the emotions would would kind of be there, especially if you do this type of work energetically. Realistically, there's no way it won't affect you. It should. It should. Other human beings suffering should impact you. There's
thought, sorry to interrupt you, Peter, but just to catch on with what you were saying there was, and I know this is kind of in your space and in your world at the moment, but childbirth comes from pain, and yet the joy of life, it doesn't, it's not without the labor, and it's not without that hard push to get that life into the world. And yet, we keep embracing or receiving new life in the world. No, the pain of childbirth has never stopped somebody from having a second child.
Exactly.
And so, although there's tears in the evening, there will be joy in the morning. And so, was it Neil Welsh who spoke about out of chaos? I've heard a brilliant book that says nothing beautiful comes without a disintegration, and so it's just recognizing that in order for there to be life, there needs to be death. Something always needs to die in order for life to come. And so a seed needs to die in order for the plant to grow. That whole cycle. So we shouldn't grieve when that disruption, or even when chaos comes. I'm just trying to think who I listened to, and they were just talking about don't fear chaos.
Right.
It was very powerful.
I think if I may just tap into that briefly. Well, first of all, I just also wanted to say, Kim, thank you so much for opening up and tapping into and sharing your vulnerability. I think that in itself is such a powerful tool right now to let yourself be seen and let yourself flow, let anything that needs to show up, because it gives other people permission to do the same. And I think it's very necessary. So I just wanted to thank you for that, first of all. And, you know, I love that you mentioned, it's funny actually that you mentioned Neil Donald Walsh, because as you were talking and, you know, saying right at the beginning, where you feel like you are so far away from what is happening in the Ukraine, that, you know, maybe there could sometimes be this dissonance of, oh, but I'm not there. Am I allowed to be affected by this? Yes. Because, you know, Peter and I, we recorded something about this just yesterday, actually, about the collective consciousness and understanding that, like you said, you know, we are all interconnected. Is because if you think about it, 99.9% of our DNA is the same. No matter where you are from, no matter what you look like, 99.9% of our DNA and everything we are made up of is the same. And yet we live in a world where the systems that we have not necessarily created us right now, me and you, but the systems that we allow to continue to evolve are ones that focus on that 0.1% of what makes us different. And so I think it's a beautiful thing to start with that, you know, understand, yes, there is, you know, chaos and destruction, but that's one side of the coin. And it's always going to be there, cause and effect. You know, there you can't have, you know, construction without destruction. Just like, you know, I heard this from an old grandmother that said, you know, life is really just a series of ups and downs. And so if we're seeing a down right now, understand that there is also an up, you know. And I love that you brought to light that it starts with you, with one heart, one mind, to really look at, well, what can I do? Even when it, you know, to start with, what kind of energy can I put out? So, you know, if you're watching, you'll see Kim got really vulnerable, which without me doing anything consciously really brought up a lot of emotions and tears. Peter's here, like, you know, the little side, are you okay? And Peter gets affected by that. So cause and effect, which leads us to believe and see that, you know, it's not naive, I think, to have that hope and to want to create that change. That's exactly how every revolution that we've ever seen in history started.
Yeah.
Lena has a way of, you know, creating a little bit of space to think about what she just said. That was just so beautiful. And it's true about this connection that we share, you know, and I think that the biggest thing is we've been educated out of it, really, through systems that were created really during the Industrial Revolution that really don't serve humanity. They're to serve industry. And the education system really that we see today, you know, the largest part of it is really based on that Industrial Revolution. That's where the education system was actually formed. So it's really interesting you talk about school that way, because man, I do not like school. I like to learn. I do. I love learning. I love to
Yeah.
read. I love different concepts, understanding things. I like philosophy. I love science. But somehow school and me are not friends. So thank you for for reflecting that back to me.
Yeah. And I think that was one of the gifts of the pandemic, was just getting people to rethink the way we do education. And I know a lot of people have just gone back, you know, and just, we want to just slot back into the system because it's convenient. But I feel that there has been a disruption, and with it, I think there are more questions and just like a reevaluation.
Right.
And so I am hoping that people will rethink. It's obviously, from a governmental perspective, it's quite radical, because part of what education does is it institutionalizes the thinking. And so going back to what limits potential is conditioning does. And so, you know, I also felt that the time of the institution is numbered. The days are numbered. for anything that has institution in it. So if it's a governmental institution, educational institution, religious institution, penal institution, anything that has the word institution in it, the days are numbered, because the world, that collective, is reinventing itself, and it's challenging it. And I look at my children, they don't see nationality anymore. They interact. My son has a group of friends who he's in Eswatini. He's got a Polish girlfriend, Lithuanian. There's a group of 7, so it's Poland, Lithuania, France, Turkey, the Netherlands. He's got these 7 friends who come from and so just that easy cross culture. It's happening. And so very soon, this generation is going to be leading the world, and they're going to be saying, why do we have borders?
Right.
What is this? Like, what is this issue with gender or color or creed? Or, it's just going to be where, I don't know, they're creating their own future. And it's going to be a shock to people who aren't even aware of, even avatars is interesting. That somebody was saying that children are they're not even presenting themselves as male or female or color or whatever. You could be talking to this person and you've only ever known them as a green dragon, and you've never questioned that they're a green dragon. So when they finally reveal themselves and they say, "Hey, I'm a white African boy," it's like, oh yeah, that's just as cool as a green dragon.
Right.
So, I just think, what I think our generation can't conceive of the future that's coming, but the young people can, and it's not going to have institution in it.
I really think that that's one of the biggest issues. I know, like, this is not our topic, really, education, but I'm a big I'm a big fan of this topic because education is meant to present information to people who are going to live in a future that we can't predict. No one has any clue what that future look like, and yet we're supposed to be educating people now for that future. I'm not saying that I have the answer, but I'm saying that this is really something that needs to be thought about for every single person. Even 15 years ago, if someone had showed you an iPhone, you would have thought they were from an alien or something. So imagine what the next 15 to 20 years will hold for our future. So it has something to do with our mindset, and tapping into our passion, potential, and purpose is really what's going to prepare us for that. So we can shift, we can accept change, we can move forward, we can be embracing and loving and live in harmony, instead of drawing these hard borders, crossing them, and at the expense of human life. I think that's really something to really reflect on and think about. One of the things I'm fascinated about what you do is this aspect of removing those blocks, right, that you talked about, removing those entanglements. And one of the things that you talk about and that you utilize is systemic family constellations. Now, for someone who has never even read about this, I didn't watch the TED Talk, right? Coming from a complete state of, just pure ignorance and just curious, how would you help to explain that, what it is, and how you use it to remove those blocks from accessing our full potential?
Yeah, such a great question. But so I think I'm just trying to think who said it, but the quote went something like this: that we can't enter our future without understanding our past. And so if I don't know where I've come from, how do I know who I am in the present, and how do I prepare for what's to come? And I think that's in a human space. And so what systemic constellations does is it explores our past recognizing that who I am today is the net result of generations who have come before me. And so it's saying that I, as a human, my energy has come from this generational past. And it's saying that in that past, I am interconnected and linked to this vast history that could also, what Lena was saying, that we're actually all the same, that our DNA is so interconnected. I think all those DNA tests now are showing us, there's no pure race.
Right.
Where as humans, we're all deeply interconnected, even at a DNA level. And so there's this premise that Constellations operates on, and it says that love wants to flow. It wants to flow through our system. It wants to flow to us and through us. And so often we look at our past and all we see is pain. So even in our individual capacity, often what stays with us are not the joyful, happy memories, although we can access them. It's those points of pain. It's those traumas that happen. It's those things that really imprinted. Because with a high emotion comes a strong imprint. So if there's fear, if there's pain, imprinted into our system as a survival mechanism is, you need to remember this so it doesn't happen again. And so, our past, we'll look back and we'll latch onto past pain. And then even further back, because there's been those imprints in our genealogies, that can come into our DNA. And so sometimes those entanglements are not what happened to me, but maybe what happened to my grandmother, or maybe what happened to my great-great-grandmother, that somewhere in her DNA was an imprint and it's come through to me. And so systemic or family constellation says that there is a knowing field that we then want to tap into. And I may not have known my great-great-grandmother, but there is an energetic source of information that can be tapped into, that can reveal something to me. And sometimes even with pain comes a gift. So, we know the pain of childbirth gives a gift of the child. Even sometimes the pain that we've gone through, or the trauma that we've gone through, has made us more resilient, has made us more loving, has made us more compassionate or more empathetic, because we've experienced something. A person who has experienced no pain or no trauma is not normally a very nice person. They often don't have a lot of compassion or a lot of kindness or a lot of patience. Those truly beautiful humans are the humans who have been like diamonds, have kind of turned their coal into this beautiful gem because of pressure, because of what life has brought into them. So what Constellations then looks at is, where in your system has love got entangled and blocked, and so now it's not flowing. And it works on these principles called the orders of love. And so there's an order of love called belonging, that we need to recognize that everyone in the system has a right to belong. So even those undesirables, if we don't acknowledge them, sometimes there'll be this, uncle that nobody wants to talk about. Even that person has a right to belong in the system, not because of what they have or haven't done, but because they were part of the system.
So you're saying we have to let Putin belong as well?
Yes.
Right.
He has a right to belong as a human. And so this universal law says everyone who has come into the system has a right to belong in the system. And when we exclude somebody, so if you have a bad relation, so I didn't have a father, he alcoholic who left when I was tiny. So for most of my life, I never acknowledged him. I never spoke about him, never honored him, never gave him any thought because he wasn't in my life. And so when you remove somebody from your system, you've now created an entanglement that stops love from flowing. So this is not a moral thing of saying we're making a judgment on this person. We're just placing them back. And so literally, if all I can say is, I had a father who gave his seed to produce me, I've then put him in. But I can't say I didn't have a father, because I did. Even if he was a dirty rotter, he was still my father. And so what can I honor him for? I can honor him for the seed that produced me.
So it also sounds like it's beyond just the words, right? It's also like the emotional aspects as well. And if that's true, is that also something that would block us? Just like, I think that's Zen Kali, I can barely see the name, is asking back to the question, what stops us from reaching our full potential? Would that block then stop the love from flowing, which would stop you from actually accessing more of your potential from the ocean that exists?
It will stunt your growth. Because, so let me use me as an example. So if I don't allow my father to belong in my system, and I reject him and don't speak about him and say I didn't have a father. So if people say to me, I used to say this. I was like, I didn't have a father. That's not true.
Right.
A biological father wouldn't be here if there wasn't a male in my life, but because I was angry with him, I didn't want to acknowledge him. So now this impacts on my relationship with men. But if I put him in the system and I acknowledge that I had a father, I don't need to say he was a good father, but I just need to put him, and he has the right to be called my biological father, because that's who he is. And so belonging, that's an entanglement that if we don't speak it, and what Constellations does which is really beautiful, it doesn't put you in that position. It often uses representatives. So somebody else takes the role of you, and somebody else takes the role of the father. And then that conversation happens between them, and healing words are spoken.
Can you dig into that a bit? Like, do you bring people into the space to represent these different entities of either blocking or opening that area for love to flow?
Yeah, so representatives could be human. I've also used it with gemstones or semi-precious stones, and you put and you just place them and you say, okay, so who are you ignoring in the system? And you can hold the stone, and then kind of speak the words, I see you, I see that you're my father. And these healing words are then spoken. So 𝙁𝙗𝙧𝙧𝙦 was kind of the man who brought this into our world and introduced it to us. Actually, through his interaction, he was a German, I think he started out as a German Catholic priest, and then he became a psychotherapist, but he worked with the Zulu people in Africa, in South Africa. And he saw how their system operated, and he got insights. So a little bit of history, but he used these healing words to create these to disentangle these elements. So it could be just that healing word could be I see you, I see you. You are my father, and I am your daughter. And then something just settles energetically in the system. And then sometimes the representative feels that they can say it, and sometimes they feel, no, I can't say it. Or even the person holding the stone feels, I can't say that. So then you know, okay, something else needs to be spoken or released. So we just have these very simple healing statements that are then spoken, that if you imagine that we belong in the system that has all these threads, and each thread is now, we just detangle this one so that love can then flow back and release. And of course it would impact on me now, because something energetically readjusts itself in my system. And it's very powerful. I love horses, so I use my horses as well. I invite them into, so we go sit in the field, and the horses show up. They'll represent. They're amazing. They're so in tune, and yeah. So whether you're using humans or objects or animals, it's that knowing field wants to give information.
Right.
Itself.
Wow.
I know that Lena had told me about this before, that she was excited to ask you about this very topic. So.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Before we kind of moved from that, I just wanted to tap back into it. I think, what I was hearing as you were talking about that was really, I think, something I guess I would maybe incentivize other people listening right now to do, which I will probably do, is I'm sure that as you were speaking, Kim, we all had somebody come to mind in our lives.
I did.
From our past that we have probably been kind of blocking out from seeing, from accepting, maybe on a mental level. We're like, yes, this person, was my father, my mother, my ex-boyfriend, whatever it is. And I feel like from what I was hearing, was a great place to start would be just to look, like to find a space perhaps and look and, sit, okay, where am I holding the most resistance? And I really saw kind of a parallel actually between the family constellations that you were explaining, looking at our past to understand our present, and this question of, what is blocking us from reaching our full potential. And the analogy that came to my mind is like, imagine you have a house, and except you're keeping certain doors and certain rooms in your house locked. How are you going to understand what this house that you're living in actually has to offer you if you're always keeping a certain room locked? And so I feel, as you were talking about, seeing things for what they are, like accepting, like you said, that, this person, without going to the immersion in what you feel about them, just acknowledging that this actually exists, first of all. I feel like that also connects to us on an internal level with ourselves and our relationship to self about emotions. Because I think, at least I can only speak from my experience here, but I know that for the longest time, there were certain parts of me and my being, certain emotions, like let's say anger, for example, or frustration, that I felt like I couldn't experience, or I wasn't allowed to experience certain feelings. And the moment that I kind of had the courage to lean in and say, okay, where is this part of me that actually just wants to be expressed and seen? And, some of it was tied to past trauma, some of it was tied to the defense mechanisms I had built up. As soon as I just even like said to myself, like out loud, I see you, you're angry, you're allowed to be angry, it dissipated. And I realized that, wow, like that was the solution, that it just wanted to be seen. And I'm not saying it's going to obviously fix, that the trauma or the ways that we have stored trauma overnight. But from what I really was hearing was that if we allow ourselves to just have the courage to look, that is going to automatically have some sort of resonance to unlock what it means to have that potential, or to tap into your potential. Because how can you know if you're purposely keeping those doors locked? So I just wanted to tie it kind of back from my observations of what you were saying.
I rarely have anything to add when Lena goes into it. Like,
She's lovely. Oh,
Thanks.
her voice is so
Just-
beautiful. So the 4 orders of love, there's belonging, there's balance, that everyone has the right to receive as well as give. And sometimes the love isn't flowing because there is someone in your system who is taking and not giving. And so even in an organization, we'll often find that there is an imbalance of give and take. So maybe the organization is taking more from its employees than what it's giving to them. And so there's an imbalance of give and take. And or sometimes a child is demanding of the parents and just taking, but not giving. And so there, if somebody's coming in a family constellation and they've got difficulties with their children, what might present itself is that the balance of give and take is out. And that, maybe the parent is over giving for whatever reason, and the child is only taking. So the balance, belonging, balance, and then precedence and place. So sometimes what will present itself is that the one who came first is not honored as the first. So let's say maybe in a family, the parents wanted a boy and the first child was a girl, and then they have a boy and they treat the boy like he's the firstborn, because that's what they wanted. And so now the daughter, she needs to be acknowledged in the system as the firstborn. And a healing would be, I'm the firstborn. And for the representative, for the son to say, I'm the secondborn. For the daughter to say, I'm the big one. To the brother, you are the little one. And so place can also sometimes show up where a parent, where a child becomes a parent and the parent becomes a child. And so now that's the wrong place. The representatives need to say, the mother needs to say, I'm the big one. And the child needs to say, I'm the little one. And then something comes back into line. The child was never meant to be the parent.
Right.
Sometimes if children are lost, through a miscarriage or stillbirth, and a family doesn't acknowledge that child was in the system, that can cause an entanglement. So sometimes it's just saying, you know what, I had an older brother. We lost him. And a healing word could be, we lost you too soon. You were my older brother. And just putting that little soul in place will create an untanglement or a detanglement. And then, I talk a lot and my brain goes blank.
No, it's fine. I think you really walked us through this system of constellations, how you utilize it, and how to remove the entanglements. And that really connects it back to the question that was being asked in the chat we had before about what prevents us from truly tapping into the full ocean of our potential. I'm going to start using that from now on, right?
Beautiful.
There's an ocean of potential that's available, and I am one of the waves in that ocean, right? And I'm connected to it. It has to be me. I have to be it. But I can't even imagine how vast this ocean is because I'm just a wave on the surface, and that's my life. And then I recede back down into it, and that's what I call death. Well, I just resolved the entire process of life on this show.
I love
That's
that.
what Peter does.
Right?
And even that potential can't ever be fully realized or accessed individually. That it like true potential actually needs to be about a collective or a community or group. It can't be, one person.
Right.
You are not here because you got here by yourself. It takes a community to raise a child. It takes
Right.
it takes a collective to tap into potential. No one has ever achieved anything great on their own.
100%.
And so for me, that image of the ocean is also about interconnectedness, not me.
That's beautiful. Before we wrap up and stuff, I wanted to make sure I asked this question that we had before about the Enneagram and how that comes into play. I think I understand, but I'm probably wrong. So I'm just going to leave it to you to explain how that systems creates more empathy, compassion, and understanding. What does that all mean? What is the Enneagram? How do we use it? How does it apply to your work?
Yeah, so it will also tap into identity. So all of who I am today comes from understanding my past. If I then find myself in this present state, and I'm willing to look in that mirror and discover myself, and not only look for the good things about me, but also find what's sitting in the shadow of me, I'm then able to create or tap into, so what is my purpose? If this is who I am, then the why do I exist, is clarified. I can't understand my purpose if I don't know who I am. And that who am I question is such a frightening one. It's a little bit like potential. It's almost like we're afraid of our potential because this ocean is so big and scary. The who am I question scares people, and they run away from it and then create cliches. Oh, I'm a child of God, or I'm this, or I'm that, or and it just becomes a cliche, and we're actually afraid of, if I look too deep inside of myself, I might find a monster. Those maps that say here are dragons. And so we're like, don't look inside. You might discover dragons, and it's going to be scary and unknown. And so I love to use tools and analogies and images to help people begin to get handles on that who am I question, so it's less scary. And the Enneagram helps you access not your full identity, but it helps you explore your motivations and those shadow aspects of yourself, your ego and your essence. The Enneagram is a system. It's a personality profiling system that is, you're typed based on your core motivation. There's 9 predefined personality profiles based on motivation. And then it just starts to layer, and it gets more and more complex and intricate the deeper you go into it. Just like you as a human are not just male or just female. You're just this wonderfully unique and complex being. And so the more you explore the Enneagram, the more we realize everyone is unique. So yes, I may be a particular type on the Enneagram, but once we've gone through all the layers, we discover we're truly unique and beautiful in that system. And it helps people kind of understand themselves a little bit better, understand their, what's triggering me. Why does this trigger me? Why do I create a defense mechanism? It helps you. There's this wonderful phrase that 𝙬𝙤𝙦𝙧𝙥𝙤 uses it. He says, knowledge is power, but self-knowledge is self-empowerment. And when we become self-aware, we become powerful. When you have blind spots, when you drive out onto that highway and you don't have that extra little mirror that shows you where your blind spots are, you could have an accident because you are not seeing what's there. And so the Enneagram helps us discover where the blind spots are. And those blind spots are often sitting in our ego. They're sitting in our defense mechanisms, because our ego evolves to keep me safe. But it's actually, at the end of the day, what will keep me stuck. So as we coach people through the Enneagram, we don't want them to fall in love with their type. We want them to come into essence. And the Enneagram is presented as a circle. And we just invite people not to stay on the outer edges where your type is, because that motivation is actually what's often keeping you stuck. And so the invitation is come into the middle and access all those lenses. You've got all 9 types within you. Just you've created this core type as a protective mechanism. So the invitation in the Enneagram is come into the essence of your being, and access all these perspectives. We need them all, and just like the world needs each type, we can't get rid of each type because we just like them. Everyone is needed in order for the world to be this beautiful place that it is.
Love it.
So I try to do that quickly.
That was such a brilliant explanation.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, oh, I really want to say something. But first of all, I'm gonna ask the question for anybody who's hearing about the Enneagram the first time. Do you have a particular link or resource that you would recommend? Because I know there are so many out there about the Enneagram. So for someone who would like to take the test and find out kind of, what's my type and all that, do you have a particular resource that you resort to using?
Yes. So, I mean, there's a few people. So there's a purist who say, read a book and discover yourself. So at the end of the day, you are the expert. You will know whether you've been correctly typed or not. And so, Ian Cron has written a book, The Road Back to You, which is beautiful. Beatrice Chestnut is also a wonderful author on the Enneagram. Then the company that I work through is called Integrative 9. Basically, if you search on the Enneagram, so that's an online survey that you can do. And find out what your type is. I normally recommend to get coaching with your type, because the Enneagram is not something you read and you fall in love with. It really is painful. It's like looking at the mirror with no makeup on for the first time. Like all your flaws, and if you've been correctly typed, it will show you all your flaws. And so for certain types, it's a painful discovery, and so the coaching just helps somebody just navigate that initial pain and then come through into the understanding. It's a wonderful team tool, for organizations to understand one another better, to speak a language. Each type has a language style, and so if we're speaking each other's language, suddenly people feel seen, heard, and valued in the system.
Yeah, I think
beautiful.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Peter.
No, I was just saying that's beautiful.
I was going to say, just, from kind of being someone who's explored it, I'm by no means an expert, but I can say, compared to many other personality tools, for example, the MBTI, Myers-Briggs, I really found that was the key difference of your ego can be so encapsulated and captured by, oh yeah, that's me, and let me stick to that being me. But when I found out, when I did the Enneagram kind of examination thing, I remember actually when my results came and I read it and I was like, this isn't me. And then it said the last line in the report was, most people with this type tend to find another type because they don't think this is them. And I was like, what is this? And it really highlights it, exactly as you said, the defense mechanisms. It wasn't a tool about strengths and, yes, strengths and weaknesses to some regard, but I really felt it helped me understand why I did the types of things I did in my life, and why I searched, for kind of validation through my achievements. That was kind of one of the biggest things that I discovered. And it truly helped me realize, as you said, those defense mechanisms, not just the nice sides that you love to look at, but also the shadow sides of you. And then to also help understand, other people, because I like that there's also a wing aspect. So as you said, you're not ever just typed as this one number. You always have like a wing, where you're kind of a mix. And then, as you said, you're also a mix of everybody else, just to some different degrees. And I think that really does help build empathy, because, the more you understand yourself, I found the more you understand that you have all the same ingredients as everybody else. But it's just like, if you're making a cake or a croissant, one is going to need a little bit more like butter than the other. And I feel like that's the same with people, is we all have the same, ingredients within us, just the dosages are all a bit different. And that's what makes us all so uniquely the same in a way.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. Oh, that's so lovely. I love that explanation.
I love food, so I always use food
I think
analogies.
that's,
But
I think that's really,
That
really
is
cool.
so cool. That is so cool.
I definitely think that we're going to have to somehow expand
Mm.
on this, Kim. This can't be the last interaction that we have on our platform, on our show with you. And um, I had no doubt that this would be an amazing program to have you on it. So, as we wind down, I really want to say just, immense gratitude to you for coming on the show. But kind of like what I told you in the beginning before when we first interacted was thank you for seeing me as well. Thank you for seeing us, seeing our program, seeing our brand, seeing our potential as well, because that is also a way of helping people to step into a higher space, right? When you're able to actually recognize them and say, hey, this is your place, like we just talked about, right? It helps that person to step a little bit further into their potential. So really, thank you for doing that for us.
Oh, I love that. I
And
love that. And yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. It's amazing. And I remember saying to Peter, you just shine, it's so beautiful. So yeah, keep shining in this world. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
amazing.
Thank you so much for having me, for inviting me with, very little background, or, Lena hadn't even met me or spoken to me. So thank you for your trust. I value that, and I hold it sacred. And whoever was watching tonight or today, I just hope that they got something. They got some soul food.
Right. I'm
I
sure they
definitely
did.
think they did. And Kim, I have one last question before we let you go. Could you tell us briefly in your words, what does it mean to you to live a life on purpose?
Wow, to live a life on purpose. I think it's that connection to my past, my present, and my future. So not to acknowledge where I've come from, how far I've come, where I am now, and to begin to clarify where I'm going. So if this is
Wow.
where I've come from, if this is where I am now, and this is who I am, what does it look like? And so it's my purposeful quest is to clarify what does the future look like. If I can keep getting better now, what does that mean for my tomorrow? And what could that look like? Does that mean a healthier world for my children to step into, healthier corporates and organizations for to be in that employment space for my children to go and work. Having a clearer vision is what purpose is about for me, and still not limited to one thing.
I love that. Wow. Thank you so much, Kim, for sharing that and for sharing your expertise with us here today as well. For anybody who wishes to connect with you further, could you let us know where would be the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Thank you. My little website is connected.co.𝙎𝑧. So 𝙎𝑧 is for Swaziland. Is probably because that will have my email address and contact details on there. So just via my website, just reach out to me. I've got a very small Instagram following, so I'm on Instagram. So Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn as well, Kim du Plessis. Small following on Facebook. I have social media presence, but my daughter is like way more present than what I am.
Well, as long as you're making a really big impact in the world, that's what I think is important. And this is important also for, those listening. And I really love that question again about, what blocks us from our potential. It's is to recognize that, the candle that you're shining won't be able to be seen in the sunshine. It needs to shine in the dark. So
Mm,
Wow.
wherever you are right now, whatever you're going through, whatever the obstacles, you can still shine. And you also need the darkness to shine. So it's a way of appreciating both, understand that they both hold space, and to step into that as a full human being.
That's amazing.
what a
That is
beautiful
so
way to
beautiful.
end.
That is a beautiful
Wow.
way to end.
I'm really
Oh,
inspired by you all right now. Thank you so much, Kim. So
thank
much
you.
love. Yeah, I can't wait to see what we do next, what we
Hmm.
come up with next. So, thank you for joining us on a Life on Purpose Live.
Thank you,
Wonderful.
everyone.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right. Lots of love, Kim.
See you next time. And everybody watching, we will see you in our next episode.
All right. Peace.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.